back to the Racial Draft Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Hangover Cures. Also, Marky.
Guys, happy to be with you. This is Marky coming to you today with Corona Premier, one of the few remaining in America. Yeah, I'm drinking it and I'm owning it. Hoping to learn something with the guests we have for you guys today. So let's jump into it.
Sure. And we've got our Fantasy Comics League correspondent also with us, Sean.
Yeah, and I have a Dead Horse Cider Cherry. So that's very upbeat.
And we also have two special guests this week. We have comic book analyst Arturo Garcia.
Mike, great to be here. Very, very excited about this project. Glad to see things are getting serious. I want to see these teams get after it.
And also, a resident artist and work of art himself, Eli Johnson.
Thank you guys for having me on. Very happy to be here, and I look forward to doing this first time on the podcast with you guys. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. So yeah, this is the pre-draft extravaganza. We're gonna do some analysis of all the different teams and what their needs are, and we're just gonna go for it, free form. We're gonna lean on Arturo for the deep analysis. We're gonna lean on Sean for the fantasy analysis, and Eli for trying to figure out how to draw all these people.
And Mike, let me just, before everybody pops into it. So as you guys know, I'm not the expert, the super expert. I'm a fairly literate fan. But what I've seen happening this week in the Discord chat, as people sort of talk about how to construct their teams and how the scoring system is going to work, is it's very elaborate and sophisticated. Like people really have a huge knowledge base for this. So if you could sort of just like from 30,000 feet or whatever, sort of explain what's going on in terms of this draft going tomorrow or whatever, for people who might not be sort of as in the weeds on this as some other people, I think that'd be really good for people.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, it's mainly for fun. It's mainly about trying to, on behalf of your different race or ethnicity, putting together characters that you think would work better in story mode, would deepen these characters and make them more interesting if they were of a different racial background. There is a strategic element to it, in the sense that once the teams are set, we're going to drop these teams into Sean's Fantasy Comics League. Is it fantasycomicsleague.com, Sean?
I think it's Fantasy Comic League WordPress, but I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, we want to plug you properly. Pause.
Sean hates money.
Yeah. So there is that strategy element, but mostly for our purposes, it's about creating conversations, about talking about these characters that we love, and maybe finding ways to love them more if they were a little different, tweaked slightly. I'll run down. Last week we did the draft order. For those of you who are new to the podcast, number 1 draft pick will be the multiracial team. Number 2, Native American. Number 3, Polynesian. Number 4, Asian. Number 5, Jewish. Number 6, white. Number 7, black. And 8 is Latinx. And that's probably a good place to start. We can analyze what these teams' needs might be. Arturo, would you like to chime in?
I can't speak to individual GMs and what they might be looking for, but one thing that comes across to me is that there is a wealth of talent out there just looking for the right hands. And when I talk about that, my first example is a character like Danielle Moonstar, Native American character, part of the X-Men series, and really a victim of the stagnation of, we're going on 20 years worth of characters that have been undervalued by Marvel, and their insistence on building a race / sexuality / sensuality / gender analogy centered around white cis heterosexual characters. Danielle Moonstar, part of the New Mutants, characters who arrived in the 1980s, and we're going on 40 years of them being the New Mutants. Capable leader, power of the Valkyrie, she should be running the X-Men, period, if not an Avengers squad. And yet, because of because of the big two's insistence on propping up characters largely, created between the 40s and 60s, somebody like Danielle has been neglected. And I really want to see what someone can do with a character like her. If you look at characters of more recent vintage, you've got to look at Miles Morales, Black Latinx, the anchor of, for my money, one of the top 5 U.S. animated movies in history, but still operating in the shadow of the Peter Parker brand. I think any team that grabs Miles has a chip for generations following ours as far as influence.
Yeah, that's true. So Sean, as the only captain that's available, obviously without tipping your hand about who your number 1 draft pick, what would you say are some of the needs for your team, the things that you might be targeting overall?
Good question. I was gonna go with the theme for my team. It was going to be fuck ups. I was gonna get all the fuck ups and put them on the white team.
Got it. Now, is that based on the idea that them continuing to be viewed as heroes is because they're still white?
I didn't necessarily say they were going to be white. I'm going to argue for them to be on the white team. Are we still doing that? Are we still changing races?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Good.
That's literally the whole point of what we're doing here.
But
good.
But again,
I was listening to the talk about Danielle Moonstar, and I was like, we're drafting her? Who's going to argue for her to be a different race?
I mean, that could be different. There's a bunch of different directions we could go with drafting Danielle Moonstar.
I will say this, as somebody who's done fantasy comics and stuff, if you want to go for points, what he said was true. Pick the characters from the 40s to the 60s to the 80s, 40s to the 60s, and pick their golden age characters like Captain America, convert them to your team, and you will get that shit. And I imagine anybody who gets Batman and Spider-Man. Those 2 people, if they end up on the same team, they win. That's it. Everybody else is done. You can't beat the combined might of Batman and Spider-Man.
That is definitely something that teams should be paying attention to. I think
you gotta sabotage the other people's drafting so they can't get a team that can destroy yours. Don't sabotage them. Help other people draft wisely is what I do in the fantasy comic league. And then the next time, by the time they get to somebody who I don't want to win another month so I can win the overall season, they're like, well, there's no good characters left. And I'm like, geez, I wonder why.
Well, I mean, I think that multiracial team is very well situated to draft one of the big guns. As you remember Nate, right, Mark?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, Nate is very strategic minded, and now with Frankia in tow as the co-captain, they are both laser focused on making sure that the multiracial team takes over this industry.
So, Mike, as we move forward here, I actually wanted to ask Eli a quick question. So, sort of related to what we're getting into, we're actually going to draft, and my understanding, Eli, you're going to be doing some of the concept artwork for this potentially. When you think about sort of taking characters or whatever and drawing them sort of from a different racial bent potentially, what sort of issues and concerns does that bring up for you as an artist? And are there any things that, like pitfalls, you feel like maybe you should be wary of or concerned about as you take on a project like that?
I mean, it's about the same as you approach any kind of character, because you always want to make sure that the character is representing their concept and not so much leaning on their race, even though you do want to kind of include that into the design. if that makes sense. So for even something like Leaders of the Free World, when, you know, I was doing some of the designs for that, you know, which you'll see in the next episode, but some of the stuff, the designs for the Godsend and stuff is very ethnic, but I did that deliberately. So it's like, you kind of want to reflect that in the designs of the characters, and even for remixing designs, like, you know, what we're doing with the Racial Draft, but you don't want it to be like, you know, too much, because, you know, it's about a balance, I think.
Right.
That makes sense.
Got it. Well, as you know, the black team is drafting way down on the board. As have we all played fantasy sports here?
Yep.
Yeah. So you know, we're heading on the loop of the snake draft. So I would think that the black team would probably want to target two players in close proximity to each other. I mean, two heroes in close proximity to each other. And I'm curious as to who will still be around at the 7th pick.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that for the guys, Mike, how deep is this draft? Like, is this if you get the top 3 or 4 picks, you're going to dominate this guy, or can you really get a comparable pick in the 7, 8, 9 spot?
That's a good question, Sean. I mean, you know a little bit more about the scoring system. How would you tier the characters into? Now, remember,
I do our preview for each month, where it's like I read all the solicitations
mm-hmm.
and I look at all the covers and I try to figure out the characters I know for sure are going to go out, and then I put out that preview chart. Usually you've got, like, I call them God tier, superhero tier, hero tier, and villain tier. Your superhero tier is like Spider-Man with 10 appearances in 1 month. That means he's showing up like 2 to 3 times a week. And then usually, like, your superhero tier, they're like 5 to 7. They're like your Doctor Strange, Captain America, Iron Man, Wolverine. The characters who show up a lot, but unless they're having a event that month, aren't going to show up in double digits.
Okay.
And then, but sometimes, like, because we only do 4 and we only have 5 people in a division, we're only drafting 20 characters.
Right.
There's a lot of characters that get at least 3+ appearances. There's probably like 30 of those characters in Marvel alone a month. So as you get into your later picks, you can pick wise. You could get a surprise pick at the end that changes the whole thing.
Got it. And remember, you know, you guys in FCL are just Marvel, but DC, how many, based on what you've read in the past, would you say they have in terms of superhero tier?
I mean, Batman would be the equivalent to Spider-Man. And I would say if you're a Bat family character, you're probably going to get multiple appearances a month. Unless, like, something happens to you, like Dick Grayson when he got shot for direct and he didn't show up anymore.
Right.
But
point.
And your Wonder Woman characters, your Superman characters, basically, if you're the head of a family, like the Wonder Woman family, the Superman family, you're going to be a character you're going to want to get, because you're going to appear not only in solo titles, but team books as well.
Right. Are there any characters that are surprising, that would surprise us as to how well they do? Sleepers, if you will.
I can tell you somebody who is notoriously one of the worst picks every month. No matter how many appearances he has in a month, he usually just stands around and does nothing. Black Panther.
Oh, that's
of course,
team
Sean
book. And every
that.
team
Of course, Sean said that.
But you want flyers, because if you have a character who flies, they're never not flying. An artist is always going to draw them flying.
Eli, is that true? Are you always going to draw prioritize the flying characters?
I mean, yeah, you know, to paraphrase John Romita on one of his interviews, he says, if you ever have Spider-Man on the ground, you wasted him. So it's pretty much applies to flying characters too. If somebody can fly and they aren't walking, did you really do a good job?
Mike?
Yes.
Just to jump on Sean's point, we are in the midst of Empire over at Marvel. There's another Dark Knights, a Metal series over at DC as well as Event Leviathan. So several characters are going to get a lot of appearances in the next few months.
That's a good point. But I think we're still going to be drafting when those events end. So we have to look ahead to the next event. We have to sort of strategize where we think the major storylines are going. I would imagine in the aftermath of Empire, some of the Young Avengers characters will be getting a boost. Hulkling will probably be in a new status quo. Might be a character worth targeting. Generally, characters die in these events, so characters we may want to avoid drafting a character that might end up dying.
That's hard to predict, though.
The month Kitty Pryde died, she died in the first week of the month. I had her at a total appearance of like 6 appearances that month. And then she died in the first week. And she only showed up in Fantastic Four and X-Men again that month. But I was like, oh, I'm sorry, everybody who drafted Kitty. That hurt you guys hard.
Do you get extra points if they, real quick.
You get a character development point for the
death, right. Now, one thing that we should talk about is the possibility of getting bonus points for coming back from the dead.
Yeah, you would get a character development from returning to life.
Now, when she appears as a corpse, does that count as an appearance?
No. If you want to, sure, but she's dead.
I mean, she's in a funeral, right? It's still a character development.
If she gets up, pulls some Michael Jackson Thriller stuff, yes, totally counts. But if she's just lying there dead and there's nothing inside her body, she's dead. Is she really there?
I mean, she's there. They're all talking about her.
What if she appears in a Marvel Zombies book the month she died?
Yeah, totally. That counts.
What if she appears as a ghost?
We have counted that. Doctor Strange has shown up as a ghost a few times in the 6 years we've been doing this. But it's kind of like, we counted if Doctor Strange did it, but if it was like some character that nobody had ever heard of, like, I don't know, Captain Carrot, and he's a ghost. Tracking this stuff takes forever. This is like hours of my week, just reading the 20 plus comics that Marvel points out, tracking all the characters, tracking all their points, tracking all their powers, putting that into a system. And then running a fantasy comic league on top of that, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing the Lord's work, you know.
Well, actually, that's actually something I wanted to follow up on with Sean. I don't know if other members will have a thought too, but how much of an advantage can team members get, the captains basically, before their draft, if they do like a deep dive on the Reddit comic subthread about where these comics are going? Is there an advantage to even doing the research?
Oh yeah, I win all the time because I read all the comics. I know Doctor Strange appeared on the last panel of Miss Marvel that month, you know? I know that's probably a good reason to draft Doctor Strange. Like, reading the stories and being up to date gives you a huge advantage, but what I usually use when I draft at the month, there's this site called League of Comic Book Geeks, and it allows you to go through week by week so you can see what comics come out that week. And then I look at the comics and I'm like, oh, Hulk's going to show up there. He's probably going to do a couple things. You know, he might get me 4 points that week. And then I just kind of do it week by week. Because I'm already tracking all these points to make the preview app. It just makes sense for me to spend another 20 minutes and figure out my picks while I'm doing it.
Got it. All right, let me follow up with you on that. Like, are you gonna, you have such a base of knowledge, would it even matter for you to do that sort of deep dive, or do you sort of already have a sense in general of like how you would go about the draft? Would you even need to be in a subreddit?
No, because like, for example, I pick Venom and I pick more. You know how many times Venom morphs? I'm going to get that point every issue. Or like with Hulk, I draft personality. That is what the entire Hulk book is about, his like 6 different personalities. I'm going to get a point every issue. Like, I know what powers to draft to get my points because I read the series.
Right.
because when we draft, we only draft free powers. We don't just leave open powers.
Yeah, but just so you know, FYI, we're uncapping the powers.
Yeah.
So if you've got a character like Superman that has 6 or 7 things that he can do, you get the whole menu. So there's definitely an incentive to draft the powerhouses, and hopefully you'll have a character that'll just rack up monster games LT style.
There's a character like, let's say Cyclops, right? You want to draft Cyclops? He's a hard one to do because he usually only does like 1 of 2 things: fires optics, leads a team, flies a plane, or flies a vehicle. He doesn't do much outside of that. You don't see him fighting people with his fists or anything like that. He's a very basic character. He's not going to get you a lot of points.
Interesting. Yeah, I would have thought that he'd, in terms of appearances and in terms of character developments, generally, when Cyclops shows up, business picks up. Particularly with where the storylines are now.
He really doesn't get that many points. Like, the last character development I think we gave him was setting up his family home on the moon. Like, Cyclops is there as a pawn piece rather than a player most of the time.
Interesting. So remember that remember that issue where they went to Davos?
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty badass there. Not a lot of points there.
That much, like, it's the rare action-heavy issue for Cyclops that, yeah. Like, when you think about it, like, remember when he teamed up with his kids to take down the opposite criminal? I can't remember what his name is.
Yeah.
He really didn't do much that issue. He kind of told his kids what to do, and the kids did it.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
And then he was like, I'm such a great dad. Listen to what I say.
Yeah. He definitely gets the leadership points, like you said, but not necessarily a lot of it. So that might be a reason to drop Cyclops a little bit on your draft board, guys. Yeah, I mean, earlier we were talking about, you mentioned characters that are not sleepers, but are there any characters that are surprisingly potent, get a lot per appearance?
I mean, yes, but they're the characters you would think. It's also like Venom could have an amazing month because Absolute Carnage is on. You can't guarantee that every month. He gets that once. So it doesn't really make him a sleeper pick. It makes him, for that 1 month, he's the one to get. Like, if you know Venom's going to be in an event, like the next event, so that's what we're planning for, go for him because it'll be worth it.
Right. And yeah,
so why is Black Panther a weak character just because he doesn't fly?
Because Black Panther, what he does is he stands around, he listens, and then he makes his decision. He's very rarely in the midst of it, like claws swinging, doing everything. He's very often, like, in Ultimates, that book, intellect. That was the only power you really ever got for Black Panther in that book. Because it was such an intellectual book, he used his brain all the time.
Right. But in current book, his current book is heavy.
Yes. It's space action heavy, though. Like, are you going to draft Jetpack for Black Panther on the off chance you might get a couple of uses of it in that one issue, but he won't use it anywhere else? I guess that's not really an issue.
Yeah, that would be moot in this situation. I mean, but I hear your point. There is a lot of ambiance to Black Panther. There's him sort of standing and making a smart play, but not making a lot of plays. And yeah, I could see how that might lend itself to him not picking up a lot of points. Does that mean that, trying to think, so a hand-to-hand type character is probably going to be in the thick of it more than a more strategy-minded character. Is that true?
Yeah.
So a lot of
Another weird set of characters for drafting is the X-Men. Sometimes Storm can be the best character in the month, and sometimes she can get like 3 points. And like her overall estimated appearances that month didn't really change all that much. It's just sometimes when she shows up, she unleashes the power of the gods and gets tons of points. And then other times she just shows up and she flies in and decides to show up.
I don't know, Sean. There seems to be a lot of hating on our black characters here.
I just said she's one of the greatest. Sorry. Okay. Another.
That was damning with faint praise.
I hated on Cyclops first. I gotta hate both of the captains of the X-Men.
Yeah, that's actually good segue because there have been a lot of new developments in the X-Men. Who would you say has benefited the most from the new X-Men status quo?
Iceman. Iceman's appearing everywhere, and Iceman always uses a bunch of powers.
Interesting. That's definitely a character that's been under a lot of people's rating.
All right, stop, guys. Layperson here. Who the hell is Iceman?
Are you serious?
He's not in the movies. I don't know. Who the hell is Iceman?
He's definitely
in the first 4, I think. 3, and then Days of Future Past.
There's a character called Iceman?
He's the guy that's in love with Rose.
I totally missed that.
I don't think he was in the first one. I think he was in the second one. He was one of the young students, and he shoots ice out of his hands, and he makes
the ice flower for her in the first movie.
Oh,
and he put ice in one of Logan's beers.
Oh yeah, well no, he blew on the beer and made it cold.
There you go.
Yeah, Iceman's been all over the place, man.
This character did not stick out for me, guys. I gotta tell you.
He was also,
that's understandable.
He was also one of Spider-Man's amazing friends back in the day, in the 80s.
This is true. That show was fire.
It was Spider-Man, Iceman, Firestar. Did you not watch that cartoon?
I mean, maybe I watched that cartoon, but I mean, the name is so lazy. I sort of lose it from there. Like Iceman, Fireman, Tree. I mean, come on. I mean, there's no effort in this character.
I mean, facts, but he's a cool character. He's actually Omega level, and he can now make ice golems that can take on lives of their own. They've done a lot over the last few years with Iceman in terms of character development. They recently he came out as gay, and he had a solo book. They've done a little bit more with Iceman in recent years, and I think that would probably continue, actually.
But this is a historically white character in the comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he'd be bent. Someone's gonna bend Iceman.
It would be smart.
That'd be interesting.
It would be smart to do it. Yeah. Now, one thing about Iceman that is, I think his mother is Jewish, so I could see the Jewish delegation wanting to make the strong play and get Iceman fully in the tribe.
Another great character who is Jewish is the Thing, because he shows up, he's getting durability because everybody's attacking him. He throws a punch, he's got a melee. He throws a hard punch, he's got a strength. The Thing shows up and does everything he's gonna do in like 5 panels, and you get all your points. And then he doesn't even have to do anything else in the comic.
And he's gonna say his catchphrase, and we should probably figure out how to give bonus points for catchphrase.
Clobbering time. I know that. I got that.
Yes.
Is that right?
That is right.
Nice.
Oh, that's another. Yeah, we should definitely think about the Thing. That's a really good point. And but you're right. These are golden age characters. These characters.
You guys want to hear something really upsetting?
What's
so
up?
We track the top 300 Marvel characters. Do you want to know how many points Falcon got in 2019? And this is including appearances. He gets a point for appearances.
In 2019, I'm gonna say very, very low because that solo killed the character.
He got 3. He got 3.
3 points.
That was it.
Yeah.
That means he showed up 3 times in the whole year.
He was benched. He was benched for sure. So
that's a rough year for him.
But he's coming.
Especially coming off Captain America.
Yeah. I mean, this year though, I predict a bounce back because he's got the show coming. He's got the soldier that's a team up with him and Winter Soldier that's coming out at some point. So
anyhow, I'll stop talking about fantasy comic league things so we can.
what did you say? No, I mean you're giving us valuable analysis, but obviously Fantasy Comics League is very Marvel focused, but we should probably talk about some DC characters. I mean, this would be more protection on your side. We talked a little bit about Bat Family. As far as what's been happening I haven't stayed super current with what's been happening in all the different DC books, but I think they've been doing a little bit more. Well, obviously one character that gets a ton of appearances is Harley Quinn. Would you comp her to someone like Deadpool in terms of scoring, just based on what you've seen?
So at one point, we actually banned Spider-Man and Deadpool because they were showing up in like 13 books a month, and like one person drafted that character, they won the month. Like you just couldn't beat them if one character had them. So I don't know if Harley Quinn has reached that level yet, because Deadpool is still, I think, slightly more prominent in pop culture.
Right.
But Deadpool right now isn't really appearing in any Marvel books. Like he's got his title, and that's about it. And he doesn't do much in his title because he's ruling an island of monsters. So it's kind of focused on his task more than Deadpool himself.
Interesting.
So Deadpool would be an awful draft right now, and Harley Quinn would be a great one. But I don't think she's ever reached his true height.
But I gotta think that's gonna end at some point. I gotta think that eventually it'll turn into Deadpool saturation at some point this year.
I don't know. Why would Deadpool suddenly be super saturated? Yeah. He doesn't really have anything on the horizon for him until Ryan Reynolds does whatever he does next.
Fair point.
Remember when Donald Glover was going to make a Deadpool TV show?
I do remember that. It's a shame that didn't happen.
There was a spec script for that online, right? That actually was supposed to be pretty good.
I read it. It was hilarious. It was basically him going, fuck you to FX, because they were like, he doesn't have time to do it. That was their press statement. And then he wrote a script in 24 hours in response to that. So I was like, yeah, I have all the time in the world to do it. They just didn't want to offend certain people.
Oh, so that's what we think it was. That was the real thing. They just were worried that the content was going to be too heavy, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably right that.
Oh yeah, because we all know how edgy Donald Glover is.
No, I mean the character. The character is somewhat edgy.
Well, I'm just wondering why, with someone as mainstreamed as Donald Glover and the type of content he's produced, they would have a fear there.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the things in the spec script were, like you said, an FU to the network, and I don't know. I mean, I personally thought that the people making the decisions around the Deadpool show were victims of the merger. That they were from the older regime, the pre-Disney purchase regime, and those people were probably on their way out, and Disney wanted to change FX's focus a little bit, and that was an unfortunate unfortunate victim of that.
It was just super strange because I feel like he was really hot. He was sort of blazing at that point. So it was a weird decision for them not to move forward and take advantage of that.
Yeah,
I agree. Not only Deadpool, but Donald Glover too. They were both super hot at the time they were doing that. I thought it was huge at the time.
But I think that Disney plans. I still think he does other plans for Donald Glover, and they might have wanted him free. They might have wanted to shift him away from the FX show into other bigger Disney projects. But I haven't seen it yet. But I think, he was in The Lion King, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I think there were decisions being made higher up in Disney that wanted to de-emphasize something with an Archer type ceiling versus something a little bit more four quadrant. But that's a good point about Deadpool kind of being held back for a little bit. Although there has been some movement, there've been some. Ryan Reynolds has been talking about the fact that there are conversations happening, and now that Feige has a little bit more of a say over what happens in the books, I could definitely see him turning the Deadpool dial up a little bit.
PG-13 Deadpool incoming.
Which means PG-13 Deadpool book.
I still wish they did Deadpool kills the Fox universe as his like third movie. That would have been the greatest send off to the Fox universe you could have done.
Yeah, but you have to get all those actors back to kill them.
It's Disney, they made the Avengers happen when nobody believed the Avengers could happen. Disney could do it.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, yeah, I would love it as well. Honestly, I would love to see Deadpool like destroy his entire universe before coming to the MCU. But what's another character that's a bit of a wild card?
I mean, I can think of the two I already listed, Venom and Hulk. They're really good when they're good, but they also have months where they don't do anything. Like Absolute Carnage happened, and Venom got like 50 points in a month, which is really big. An average character gets about 20 to 30 if they do good. And then the next month he had like 6 months.
Interesting.
Like you can't rely on back-to-back good performances from characters unless there's a big hero, like your Wonder Woman, Captain America, Batman. They're the only ones that will consistently perform.
Yeah, let's talk about Wonder Woman for a while. I've been having some conversations, and I think that Wonder Woman would be well suited to be drafted by one of the non-white teams. Did you target her as an early draft pick, or can you wait on Wonder Woman in terms of how she scored?
I would go immediately for Wonder Woman, unless I knew a character was about to have a huge month.
Okay.
It's like the same thing, Captain Marvel. You grab Captain Marvel because she does so much. She has so many powers, and she's such a central character now.
Okay. Target Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel. I could definitely see who. I could see her falling though. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who would reach for her in the early picks. But
Well, okay. There's no other captains on this podcast, did you say?
No, you're the only one.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
if anybody here was to draft, who do you guys think you would go for?
I mean, if I'm going pure strategy, there's always an argument to be made for making Peter Parker not white. So I would probably, if Peter Parker fell, I'm keeping him. I'm making him black. And I haven't figured out what complexion of black, but I have some conversation with Eli about how to illustrate Peter Parker as a black kid. But that would definitely be an early pick. Now on the loop around in the second round, I think I'd be trying to look for Dick Grayson maybe. I think Grayson's a good. He's another good character. It makes sense, honestly. If depending on what race Batman ends up being, but in the racial draft, it would make sense for, to the extent that he's looking out for troubled youth, that he would find a troubled youth with acrobatics and
Counterpoint. He made Robin as bright and colorful as possible to stand out in the night.
That is a good point. So maybe Batman's an asshole and he wants to put a black kid in harm's way.
Batman is historically an asshole.
Hey, I also know that Batman used to use a gun, so there's a few things that I am aware of.
I mean, he did put Duke Johnson in the bright yellow suit. Not Duke Johnson. Thomas, right?
Duke Thomas, yes.
Yeah, he put Duke Thomas in a bright yellow suit. So yeah, he's definitely all about putting kids in danger.
I think for me, it's sort of a growing experience, and one of the things I'm excited about with the draft is sort of not being locked into the black-white paradigm of things, and really getting a sense of sort of how these issues sort of affect way broader wealth of experience or whatever than just whatever the black-white paradigm is in American society. So I feel like I'm not a drafter. I'm a sort of like the peanut gallery for this. But I feel like for me personally, that'll be sort of the interesting thing to see. I joke about Black Panther and Storm and all of that or whatever, but what's really been exciting is some of the commentary on indigenous people, sort of the historical, I don't know if racial nullification is the right word, but with the way the characters have been drawn over the years, it's super complex and interesting.
Right. So Arturo, if, from pure analytics, who would you be targeting if you were a captain for the Latinx team, especially drafting so late in round one?
As you said, draft order is a big factor. You've got to hope you have a shot at, like Sean said, Captain Marvel. Failing her, you hope you can grab another Avenger from the Empire event, because that event is so far-ranging.
Mm-hmm. What about a Sue Storm? Someone from the Fantastic Four. I feel like Fantastic Four does a lot. Would you agree, Sean? Did we lose Sean?
The only one I would say that for is Sting.
Okay.
Because it's like some months Reed will only use his brain, and then the next month Reed will lead a team and stretch 6 different ways and do a bunch of things. Same with Sue. Sometimes she's there for the most support. Sometimes she's the team badass. Ben and Johnny are the ones that are reliable, because if they're going to show up, he's going to do some flame, he's going to fly, Ben's going to get punched, and he's going to throw a punch. They're reliable, whereas the other two could outperform them if they decide to use powers.
Got it.
But a Fantastic Four draft is never bad.
But sorry to cut you off, Arturo. Who else did you have in mind?
Somebody I think you can look at the Dark Knight series, like the Metal series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to confuse the listeners here. There's maybe not as hot as he was, but the Batman Who Laughs is still viable. Okay.
I mean, I am not a fan of that character, but
I don't care for him either. But if you're talking exposure and and productivity, you have to keep him in mind.
That's a good point. I'm sure Marky would like to know who the Batman Who Laughs is. Could you just do a quick explanation for Marky?
Yes, because I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Batman never laughs.
This is an alternate version of Batman who became the Joker. That is about as simple as I can put it.
Yes.
That story sounds amazing. That sounds like it would be the greatest thing ever written. That couldn't have gone wrong.
Well, it's still ongoing. He's currently wreaking havoc in our main universe.
So I'm gonna need not to interrupt real quick, but I'm probably gonna have to dip by now. I got like a little extra commitments right now, but this is really shaping up. I'm loving how it's sounding, and I can't wait to get on board with the art and stuff.
Before you go, from a pure artist perspective. So
yes,
Imagine if you were drafting, but also drafting characters to draw.
Hmm.
Who would you target from that perspective?
Maybe Wolverine, something for the draft pick. I'd actually almost want to see him like maybe one of the Latino characters. That could be interesting. I would probably go that way with Wolverine because that's just interesting. And probably gotta have like Superman or one of the like tier like the like
Right.
top tier Trinity characters in there: Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, but probably just Superman of the three. Even though I am a Batman fan, so
You're saying as a black Superman?
yeah, why not?
All right.
You gotta have that, and then you can flip it, and that could be interesting. And let's see, somebody else. We need like another. What if we did like Storm like Asian? Like that would be something really out of the box,
Well,
So,
I mean,
there's
there.
It
options.
would explain why Wolverine was into it.
Oh, I mean, I know that when Joaquin was on the show, he's Native American. He was thinking about potentially drafting Storm to the Native American team.
That's a good idea too.
So, I mean, if that happens, that's an opportunity to flex your artistic muscles.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. Like, there's so many different like possibilities, not just with the drafts on the teams, but like also the races and stuff like that. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, Eli, I hate to break it to you, but Idris Elba is already Black Superman. So that's already taken.
I have no problem with that.
You may as well draw him as Idris Elba.
I have no problem with that.
All right. And on that note, thanks for joining us. Love to have you back anytime.
Absolutely.
Actually,
I'm gonna come back like probably on one of the weeks where I don't have like a bunch of stuff to do. But yeah, this is like I enjoyed this.
We need you for the ladies, Eli. So, ladies, Eli will be back. He'll be back
will
for
get the
you.
viewers up.
Contribute to the Patreon.
Content.
Absolutely. I got to do my civic duty.
All right, man.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right, thank you guys for having me.
See ya.
Later.
So let's see what else. I feel like that 4 spot is a strong spot. You're gonna be in the mid. You're gonna be in the middle of every round. You're never gonna be too far from the edge, and there's probably a lot of talent that will be there at 4.
I'm very curious to see we're gonna clearly want like your big guys up front, right? And then maybe favorites come in at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if we were to do points performance as you were getting into the later picks, how many of them like
overperform?
Where do the ethnicities perform best? Like, are the Latinx? Are they the C-list people? Are they the B-list people? Like where are the different people?
You mean the ones that are already? You mean the ones that are already of
that race? Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we will be tracking points, so I will see all
right
this.
now. Yeah, I mean, you can come back and report of who the top scoring people of each ethnicity are. That would be something great that you could contribute in an upcoming round when we're looking for things to talk about.
But like, even when it comes to redrafting to people of other colors, how many characters are going to be non-white who are redrafted?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how offensive or defensive the teams want to go. I think that in the example of Storm, she's a high scorer and she's a character that a lot of people like. I could see someone drafting Storm for their own devices.
But it's defensive though, right? Like you have to take the most powerful characters off the board early on, right?
Let me explain then like this. Are you gonna draft a young Avenger, let's say Kate Bishop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to draft Blue Marvel? Like, is somebody gonna go out of their way to draft Blue Marvel, who might be like a lower tier pick, but does not have the spotlight that like a Kate Bishop or another more prominent lower tier white character gets?
Yeah, I feel like Blue Marvel is probably a character you can wait on. Like you said, it's not always big in the appearances, even though when he does appear, he's usually doing a lot.
But like for like your 10th round draft,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Are you gonna go for somebody that you know of because they have a big spotlight on them because of how Marvel has chosen to promote certain characters, or are you gonna dig out a favorite of yours that you like that might come from your ethnicity group and choose to keep him?
I mean, I think every captain's gonna have a different strategy, and I hope they have a different strategy. I hope they're not all doing chalk. It would be less fun to talk about. I think that when it comes to the black characters, I think that we generally do have affinity for the existing black characters, and I can see there being a sense of needing to draft to keep the characters black. But I also know that there are a lot of characters out there that could be fun if they were black.
And then you have a character like America Chavez. She's got a 5-issue miniseries on deck this year.
Oh, so that's a character that might overperform her draft position. Because I don't see America as a first round draft pick generally, but I do think that she's a powerhouse.
Not only that, but she's part of 2 teams that could come back at any time, Ultimate Young Adventures. Like, we don't go very long in between having certain books. Like Runaways, you might go 5 years without a Runaways. But Young Avengers, you go like 2 or 3 years.
That is a good point. How has she been? How has America done historically? As far as
she's good because she uses a lot of powers. She gets into a lot of fights, and her book, like her last solo by Gabby Rivera, was all about her finding her family and reconnecting with her family. So character development points coming out everywhere. So she did really good for that run.
And then after that, she
disappeared.
Avengers.
Yeah.
How did she do in the West Coast Avengers era?
None of the West Coast Avengers did super well when it came to points because the book was balanced between 8 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she did okay, but she didn't do as good during her solo era.
Right. So that's another thing to probably target, right? Characters that have solo books versus characters that show up in team books.
Yeah, because a character might not show up in their team book, but it's pretty rare for a character to not show up in their solo series. The only person who does that on a regular basis, and he's an asshole for it, is Daredevil. Like, so many times I've had Daredevil on my team, and he doesn't show up in his book, and I'm just like, come on.
Wait, you mean he doesn't show up as Daredevil, or do you mean...
No, he doesn't show up in his book at all. He doesn't show up. I get 0 points.
Oh, wow.
Daredevil just like, peace, I'm not going to be in this.
But do you also get a refund, though? That's what I would want to know.
It's a Wilson Fisk heavy issue.
Yeah. Or when he had Blind Spot, when he was training his little mentee.
I miss Blind Spot.
Yeah.
Blind Spot. He's a cool character. But actually, that's a good transition point. Who do you think are the villains to target, or non-heroes, we'll say?
People who will appear a lot. Like, for example, I don't know if you count Magneto as a villain or not.
I do.
But because of Krakoa right now, he's showing up a lot. And then Kingpin, he's the mayor of New York. So he appears in all the New York titles, and half the Marvel books are based out of New York.
Interesting. So that might be a character worth considering. I'm surprised they've actually kept up that Kingpin as mayor of New York storyline as long as they did.
Mm-hmm.
I would also keep an eye on Mr. Sinister, a classic shit disturber to begin with.
Right.
But now you got the Hellions book as well.
Yeah.
So his stock should be on the rise sooner than later.
Apocalypse 2.
Yeah. I guess those characters. The weird thing about the X characters is figuring out which ones appear outside of the X book umbrella. Obviously Wolverine is king when it comes to that. But lately, it doesn't really seem like there's a lot of interaction between X characters not in X books.
I mean, gotta feel like that's kind of intentional.
Well, you've got the X-Men Fantastic Four story as well.
Right.
Yeah. Doom. Always go for Doom. Doom is, I love Doom. I have Doom on my team like 6 out of 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
Doom is smart. He's got magic. He's got suits, like energy suits, like Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he leads teams. He teams up when it's for the greater good. You know, Doom is fantastic.
My question on Doom is: when you draft Doom, do you also draft the Doom bots?
That would be a power you would draft. But yes, Doom bots would count. You would sometimes what we do is if a character doesn't like appears in the issue, but it's on a phone, we don't count it unless they give them information. It'll be like, let's say Captain America called up Sharon Carter and she told him some information. That's a team up right there. They get a team up, but she never appeared in the issue. You saw her voice tap, like you saw.
But if it's a video call, it counts.
Yes. If there's a physical presence on the panel, yes.
Got it. So,
but why was I
Doom
saying?
bot would so would it
So a Doom bot counts as a power, but not an appearance for Doctor Doom.
Oh, you see, I feel like Doom bots are his version of the Zoom call.
There's too many Doom bots that have gained sentience in Marvel Universe. Like in Moon Girl, there was a Doom bot that had sentience. In the Fantastic Four, there was a Doom bot that had sentience. And you gotta start counting. Once they gain sentience and they're their own thing, you gotta start counting them as characters if you want to track them.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that.
But if you count them as their own character, you can't also count them as Victor Von Doom.
No, I agree. I'm saying you should treat them like Madrox dupes. You should treat them like Multiple Man's dupes. Like they're all extensions of Multiple Man, unless they gain sentience and carve out their own identity.
Yeah, that is how we treat it. But we just count them as an extension of Doom's power set.
But not an appearance. Well, what if we don't know it's a Doom bot?
Then we count it as Doctor. If we don't know, we always count it. Like there's a lot of times where like Mystique will be in a storyline. We gotta go back 6 months and change a bunch of points because Mystique was fucking around for the whole thing, and these characters didn't actually appear.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I hate Mystique. I hate it.
Well, just a note though, they're building something with Mystique and her quest to avenge/revive Destiny, but they're throwing a name from the DC pile. We've got the Three Jokers event on tap in June.
Is it actually finally coming out?
I'll be very surprised if that gets delayed very long, if at all, because it's an anniversary year. They've put some effort into promoting this Three Jokers mystery. And
it's been in development for a few years, so it's got to be near.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. If you're promising Three Jokers, they're gonna want to show them each of them in their own light, and
from a rule set perspective, if you draft the Joker, do you draft all three?
No, you do not.
But each of them is going to give you a lot for whatever that series has going on.
Right.
Yes.
But
you would want to figure out which one of the three is the main Joker.
Yeah, which one is the Prime Joker and which one are the alt Joker?
Because if you had to draft out of the three, right, you draft the Prime Joker first.
Right.
Also, I hate that. Like right now in Guardians of the Galaxy, there's 2 Draxes and 2 Moondragons, and I hate it. I hate reading the book. So I'm like tracking them, and they're about to meet up. They're like 3 issues away from the 2 teams colliding. You know how hard that battle is going to be to track? Which Moondragon is using that power?
I wonder if it would be simpler for our purposes to say that when you draft a character, I mean, I know it'd be a pain for you, but
so I've been thinking about this. Me and Brian right now, because we're in a lull, we're reading Avengers versus X-Men and seeing which team performs better, the Avengers or the X-Men, using the fantasy comic guidelines.
Right.
And so I read issue 0 last night, and I read it as I usually read for them, and then I read it as if I had taken off all the caps. So that meant For team-ups, I was counting all the characters and how many characters there were, and that was how many team-up characters. It took me almost 2 hours. So I really do think we're going to need some caps, because on top of running the Fantasy Comic League, I will also be helping out with this. That's a lot of time. So
I mean, you can.
I think for powers, we should only do once per issue. Like, you can have all the powers, but just give them one use per issue. Because, like, I was tracking, who was it? Cyclops. He shot, like, optics, like, 6 times. That takes a lot of time to track.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, right. One, all the powers, but just one, you only get 1 point. But I don't think we should cap for vanquished, for
enemies.
Vanquished enemies. Like, if you get thrown into a room with 25 enemies.
Whoa, I think they should be named enemies. Like, I think named enemies is good, because it's like,
fair point. Yes. I mean, so you don't get any points if you take down a whole.
If you take down the Goon Squad, no. But, like, some Goon Squads are notable. Like, for example, Loki's screwing around, but he's got the Wrecking Crew. You get points for that, because it's each member of the Wrecking Crew. If somebody takes down each member of the Wrecking Crew, they would get 4 points.
See, I feel like I'm fine with there being where you get points. You get 1 point for taking down a group of unnamed goons.
I would be okay with that. That is fine. If you take down the Goon Squad, you get a point.
Right.
But not for each individual Goon Squad, because then I got to spend an extra 5 minutes going over every scene, every panel of that fight, and trying to figure out, has that guy already been counted?
Right. You know, that's a fair point. I think that's a good compromise. That, you know, taking down unnamed group of goons counts for as if it's taking down one named goon.
Yeah.
But any other goons? Oh, it's actually
I think when you sit down and you do this first week, whenever we do it, we should do a trial week beforehand. You will see what I say about how much time it is going to take up of your life. Because, like, you're going to be I'm going to do the Marvel stuff, right? So you don't really have to worry about the Marvel stuff. The DC stuff would be largely on your side, and I would, if there were points or something you were unsure about, I'd come in and I'd read them. Or if you were like, hey, I want you to double check these, I could read them quickly, you know, if I glance through an issue for 10 minutes, see if there's any character development or powers I got. Because it's going to take a lot of time.
Mike, you live for this, right? You're not afraid of a little elbow grease.
Exactly. Actually, I had a question for Arturo, though. We talked about the Joker earlier, and, you know, one of the more iconic performances of the Joker was Cesar Romero from the Batman 66 TV show. What do you think of Latinx Joker as, you know, identified as such?
Like all things with the Joker, that's a loaded question. Are you talking in terms of thematically, visually, or are we moving away from the FCL structure at this point?
Yeah, just, the broader story, potential and thematic implications of there being a Latinx Joker.
When you look at something like the Zoot Suit riots, visually, a character like the Joker could seize on probably the perception of Chicanismo at that point, you know, in Los Angeles. You know, you could, if you really wanted to stretch, you could view the Jared Leto Joker as a sharply twisted take on the stereotypical vato. You know, the Joker is not selling point, but one of the things that defines the Joker as a character is unpredictability, this chance that he could appear at anywhere at any time. Applying that to Latinx framework, there are some things you would have to be careful in applying visually. There are things that if you're not, and as you can say for a lot of villainous characters, especially, you're bringing up things that people have already said in a more discriminatory context. But I hang on. I think visually there's a lot from the Joker's motifs that you could have that would translate in a very interesting way. But go ahead.
No, Arturo, I was just wondering, just to follow up on this point, how would you feel about this particular iteration of the Joker sort of placed in that Joaquin Phoenix Joker universe, which was all about sort of marginalized, disenfranchised people in society, essentially, or whatever, but more from I guess a mental illness standpoint. But I wonder what this iteration of the Joker would look like in that universe.
It could go in any direction, and I think one of the big questions I think has always surrounded the Phoenix Joker in particular is the absence of Batman.
Right.
Depending on who the writer is, I think even the Joker himself would tell you that he's just not. He doesn't feel engaged unless he knows what he's doing is going to bring Batman out of hiding.
Right.
So I don't know if the Phoenix Joker. I've never felt that iteration of the character really. I feel that there's a lower ceiling on that version of the character. Let's put it that way.
Right. I tend to agree.
Because it's lacking the counterweight. And I've joked that the classic Joker would look at the movie adaptation and really feel annoyed that this guy was taking on his brand. Where's the panache? Where's the showmanship?
That would actually be a funny gag in a Batman movie, of having the Joker watch Joker the movie and get angry.
Where's the showbiz?
Right.
So I don't know. I think a Latinx Joker really puts you in a lot of different directions, but you can't really answer that question until you play you put Batman there. Is it a Latinx Batman?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So suppose there are both. Suppose there's both a Latinx Joker and a Latinx Batman. Does that help to counterbalance things? And are there aspects of those that you could speak to, aspects of the Latinx experience? Obviously there's not one Latinx experience, but aspects that could be represented by those two characters both being Latinx.
Easily. And I have a small anecdote here that won't take you too much time, but in a former career, our general manager, born in Mexico, very light-skinned, very rich, very well-to-do family. Parents were still alive, but the family could afford to have him study at U.S. schools. And he was not only fluently bilingual, but he had acquired a kind of a version of code switching.
Okay.
In that he could speak business English and business Spanish, and then when he joke around with the staff, it was a lot more frank. It was a different tone to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an aspect of the binational experience. So if you had, take a character with Batman's trappings,
Right.
and you add that to him, and you put him up against a character like Phoenix's Joker, marginalized, lower middle class, lashing out, then you've hit something.
Okay.
Because then I think that Joker, or each sees something in the other that they hate for different reasons.
Interesting. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now, Sean, you still here?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is the Joker, where would you target the Joker in terms of rounds if you were going to draft the Joker?
Probably towards the back half. Like, definitely, if we're doing 10, right?
Yeah, we're probably going to do 10.
Okay. I'd maybe start considering them around 8.
Okay.
Because villains never appear as much as your prominent heroes. But your prominent villains appear more than your low-list heroes.
Right. Even a character like Joker, though, that tends to get super exposed when he does appear.
I don't know, because, like, for example, when Absolute Carnage was going on, I drafted Carnage.
Right.
And he did okay. He did pretty good. He didn't do amazing, but he did really good. I feel like the Joker, because there's an event coming out, that might prop him up a bit more. That might push him up to, like, 5th.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't put him in my top 4, probably. Maybe my 4th, but
Gotcha.
that would depend on how much the Joker has coming up. Like,
So
what is our season going to be? Because before we actually start drafting, I would like a vague idea of when we're drafting for.
So so our season is going to kick off as soon as we draft our 10 rounds.
And that's going to be 10 weeks from when it starts.
Right. So we're starting this week. Let's look at the calendar right now. And if you want, we could sort of take a break for a week or something just to make it start in the beginning of a month. But 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I don't think we should take a break, but if we should aim for the start of whatever month comes afterwards. That way, if we miss a week or something happens, we've got that week adjustment period or 2 weeks.
Right. So I think 10 weeks takes us into mid-July.
Oh, that is right when Marvel will be, because July 8th is as far as Marvel has currently announced. And right now, Marvel isn't releasing a lot of their books. Like, Empire's not coming out yet.
Right.
They're holding that back till all the stores are open so that everybody has that merchandise and nobody's losing business by not having it.
Right. So honestly, I mean, we may be restricted a little bit as to when the full launch happens. But
no, that might be good, though, because then the solicitations we have 3 months from now, roughly, in solicitations.
Okay.
Everything that should have come out last month, though, is what's going to probably come out in July. Which means then if we start either in July or if we start in August, we're starting based off material we have solicitations already for. So we're not blind firing for August.
Right.
And excuse me. And some of that may flux because it's July when shipping might go back to normal for Marvel.
Gotcha.
And who knows what DC is doing? I have no idea.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, so imagine mid to late July would be when our season would be kicking off. So
okay,
we don't really have solicitations for that, but we do know that the books will be kicking back up. Do you remember which ones Marvel said they were going to start releasing early?
No, but I know the ones they said they wouldn't. Bleeding Cool's got an article on it.
I can jump in on this. Newsarama
Cool.
reported May 27th, scaling up through July 8th.
Got it. And they're starting with like, I want to say 19 titles. Is that right?
If you give me 2 seconds, I can actually recite the list of titles.
Oh, that would be great.
Give me.
You heard it here first, team.
Okay, according to Newsarama, Amazing Spider-Man 43, Avengers 33, Marauders number 10, Star Wars Dr. Aphra, a new number 1, and Venom 25. That's just for May 27th. June 3rd, it looks like more omnibuses and trade paperbacks. June 10th, new slate of issues, Black Cat, Daredevil, Deadpool, Excalibur, Miles Morales, and New Mutants.
Interesting.
And then it really ramps up June 24th. 2020 Rescue, Captain America Snapshots, Empire number 0, Immortal Hulk, Iron Man 2020, Spider-Ham, if anyone's into that, Thor, and yeah, that's the original issues. Everything else is back to trades.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned Thor. Sean, how does Thor typically do in as far as scoring?
So Thor is generally a great draft. Weirdly, Thor's worst performance in 2019 was during War of the Realms.
Because everyone else was shining?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also during that time, the Thor book wasn't focused on Thor. It was focused on what Cole, Odin, our Bor's son, was doing, what Loki was doing. So he wasn't even appearing in his title. He wasn't appearing in his event. It was not a good time for Thor. But generally, he's a really good pick.
So where would you target Thor as far as draft rounds?
Third or fourth draft.
Third or fourth pick. Interesting.
But depends. Like if by the time my second draft comes around and everybody else is gone, I'll pick Thor. But there are definitely a lot of characters I would prioritize over him.
Got it.
I guess my only question about that is, but Thor flies and has all the powers and mixes it up.
Yep. He's a great draft.
So lowly rated, yeah.
Because he's not Captain America. He's not Captain Marvel. He's not Iron Man. As much as they like to pretend he's part of the Avengers Trinity, it's not Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. It's Captain America, Iron Man, and Captain Marvel. He does good, but he doesn't do as good as the greats. I wouldn't say he's the bottom tier Avengers because She-Hulk is on the team, but he's not Captain America.
To close the loop on Black Panther, who we've been talking about earlier, Black Panther's book, Black Panther and the Agents of Wakanda, not out till July 8th.
I like that book. That's fun. But that's another example of one where he's barely doing stuff in that book, more so than just telling Okoye like to assemble a team. It's almost turning into a stealth Okoye book.
Yeah. You know who the star though is? Fat Cobra. Fat Cobra is the star of that book.
I do like.
Fat Cobra is the star. Period.
But okay, so Marvel has said that Empire and Outlawed, those events are being pushed back till July 8th.
Yeah, speaking of Outlawed, we should see an uptick on Miss Marvel usage based on that event, right?
Yes. Miss Marvel and Miles are usually like, I would go for them like second or third. Those youth heroes do well, especially the ones that appear in Champions and their own titles.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I was thinking though, based on you guys read the first issue of Outlaw, right?
Like the one shot?
Was it a one shot? I thought it was the...
Yeah. So it's a one shot and then it's an event that spills off into books. It's not an actual event itself.
Oh, okay.
It's just affecting Miles' book, Kamala's book. They're launching new warriors, stuff like that.
Right. So no, because isn't she presumed dead?
Was she presumed dead? I thought she woke up in the hospital at the end of Outlawed. Like, she wasn't presumed dead, but she had been, I thought they exposed her. Not as Miss Marvel, but as an Inhuman, because she saved that girl.
Hmm. I
don't know if she's going to be Miss Marvel. She's got the spotlight on.
I think she was presumed dead, though, because I think that's why they called it Kamala's Law. I thought that, you know.
I don't know. I'm pulling up Outlawed right now.
Arturo, did you read the Outlawed book?
I did. Give me a second. I'm trying to remember how that all broke down.
Yeah, exactly. What a great event. Very memorable.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the issues. Just they couldn't gather any momentum from it because of everything that happened with COVID-19.
Seems like it's in that Iceman universe of memorability.
Oh, I can't believe you're not an Iceman fan.
Never heard of.
He's not. You don't know he's not a fan. He doesn't know who the character is.
Well, the problem with Outlawed is it's going back to the well again. It's what if Civil War but young?
Yes, yeah. Civil War.
What if Civil War, but suddenly the adults didn't care this time? She's not dead. She's in the hospital.
No. I mean, I know she's not dead. I thought that the world thought she was dead, is what I'm saying.
I'm reading the dialogue right now.
No, she's in critical condition. So,
okay. So they just all right. So
they named it after her,
right?
To gin up support for the law,
right? Okay. So yeah, they didn't know that she was Miss Marvel. They thought that she was just a random girl that got hurt.
Yeah.
Got it.
The tragedy is that she's from New Jersey.
So, all right. Yeah, so you said that you would target her and Miles if you were going for pure points. You would target them in third or the fourth round.
No, like second or third. Like you want the prominent youth on your team a lot because the youth heroes rush into things.
Right.
But at the same time, after they've rushed into things, they realize, oh no, I've made a mistake. And then they use their head and they do things. And they're constantly having big moments of passion. So they're getting character development. Like they scratch all the itches that you're trying to scratch with your points.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I would imagine the same would apply for like your Titans characters in DC.
Yeah, I would imagine so too.
And yeah, they have the factory when it comes to young heroes and sidekicks and the like. Here. So yeah, Marquis, do you have any other thoughts that any other questions that you might need answering?
No, I think I'm doing pretty well. I'm sort of keeping up with you guys. There's a lot of content that obviously I haven't read. So, and clearly when I've seen some of this content in movies, some of it I haven't processed, like with the Iceman scenario. But in general, I feel like I'm definitely growing and learning every episode, and hopefully that's what's happening for some of the people who are sort of like me, who haven't done as deep a dive into the comic books, but are sort of fans. So feeling pretty good right now and excited to see who people draft in the upcoming week.
Okay. Arturo, do you have any final thoughts for analysis?
Not yet. I just like Marquis said, I can't wait to see everyone get in there and see what combinations they put together.
All right. And Shaun, without tipping your hand as the white captain, do you have any things that you'd like to throw out for people in terms of strategy?
I think actually I'm gonna take some time and put together an article of the events that are coming out because we're doing a month after we have our team. We're just doing a trial month, yes?
I haven't. we haven't solidified that. I think we're gonna, I think we'll do at least a month.
Okay, then I will put together kind of like a preview for like what events and what notable things will be happening in Marvel and DC for that month. Because I already know the Marvel side, and I mean, just DC. I can look up the DC side. The nice thing about being in deep in comic book knowledge is if you want to find more comic book knowledge, you're kind of already waist deep in it.
Right.
I feel like it's like a bad beat in poker though. Like if you lose to somebody who just comes in and has only read like one issue of Batman or something and just randomly picks a character and wins.
There was this one season, this kid from Australia, I think, came in. He was like, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. I'm just here to draft Spider-Man characters. He got second every single month. Never won a month, won the season.
Hilarious.
And I was like, he didn't read the comics. He just kept drafting Spider-Man and other random characters he knew from media, and he won.
There we go. Draft the ones that even a kid from Australia knows. And that's probably a good note to end on. You could catch us this same time, same podcast next week. We're gonna be breaking down the first round of the racial draft and previewing the second round. I haven't decided who's going to join myself, but I'm sure it'll be a fun crowd, and we'll be ready to talk racial drafting. Anyone else have any final sign-offs? Plugs?
Get a Corona beer while you can, guys. I have one of the last ones, so there you go.
I want to plug Fantasy Comic League because, I mean, the system we're using is a Fantasy Comic League. And, I mean, if people are interested in this, like, we're putting a new spin on it, but we're there all the time, you know? We read every comic. We put up weekly reviews of points, you know, and stuff. If you're interested in playing Fantasy Superhero League, check out the Fantasy Comic League as well.
And what's that website again?
FantasyComicLeague.com. You guys were like.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
But we mostly run everything on
always-
Twitter. So look at us at Fantasy Comic LG on Twitter.
All right.
And guys, while you're doing that, if you could give us a review after you check out the podcast, it'd really help us a lot. We'd appreciate it. 5 stars, but you know, feel free to be honest. But hopefully, honesty is 5 stars. We appreciate it.
Yes. Find us on all the podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the others. Sorry, they don't pay us. So,
How many sites do you put your podcast up on? Or sources, I guess.
I think at the moment there are 12 that yes. Anchor is the main hub, and Anchor controls the distribution through all the other hubs. So
Okay.
yeah, find us on Anchor as well. Anchor, who will soon be our sponsor. Once I record a spot. So on that note, on a sign off, but until next time, all things are possible through the racial draft.
Thanks, everyone.